Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear respected brothers and sisters and viewers of Imam Hussein TV, and welcome to this second episode in this brand new series, The Life of Imam Amir al Mumineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, where we'll take you on a journey to examine the key events and the main things that happened surrounding the life of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, so that we fully understand what he went through and how it shaped him as a man and as the Imam of the Ummah after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alih. And as ever before, I will be discussing this with Sayyid Ali and Nawab, and today's episode will be on the Battle of Badr, the first battle in Islam. But before we go into that, we say Assalamu alaikum Sayyidina.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Cannot complain.
Alhamdulillah.
Now, Sayyid, the Battle of Badr. We mentioned in the last episode that Imam Amir al Mumineen alayhi salam, Amul Huzn, the year of sorrow, is the year where he stepped up. He took up the responsibility to protect Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alih, as his father Abu Talib alayhi salam did. Then there comes the Battle of Badr. But as with any, let's say, as with any battle or with any war, there has to be events that lead up to it. It's not like a leader wakes up in the morning and says, do you know what, today I feel like attacking this country or these people. So take us back, just let's say a year or maybe a few months before the Battle of Badr, and take us through that journey of what happened that led to the Battle of Badr.
أحسن. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على
وعلى ابن عمه أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى أبد الآبدين. When we come to speak about the Battle of Badr, or otherwise known as the Conquest, before we speak about this event, just a general point that all of these battles or conquests that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam was engaged in, they were in defense.
On the defense.
On the defensive.
Okay.
So the enemies, the idol worshippers, the kuffar, the mushrikeen, they were the ones that started and instigated the start of these battles, and Rasulullah and the Muslims would go and defend themselves in the Islamic Ummah. As an introduction to knowing what led to the Battle of Badr, we all know how the Muslims were living in difficult conditions when they were in Mecca. That's before Rasulullah and the Muslims migrated to Medina. The Muslims were continuously being attacked. They were hurt, they were broken, they were harmed, tortured. Many of them were, as I said, exiled in the previous episode. The polytheists, they were attacking their homes, destroying their livelihood and their habitat, confiscating their belongings and what they owned, and denying them their basic rights and necessities of life, and also denying Muslims, as a result of this animosity and hatred that they had against Rasulullah and Islam and Muslims. When they migrated to the holy city of Medina, they denied the Muslims the ability to come and perform Hajj.
Okay.
So the Muslims, being Muslims, they all this time after migration from Mecca to Medina, they couldn't go back to Mecca.
And this was what, 10 years after the Ba'thah? Or 13?
13 years after the Ba'thah.
Okay.
And ever since Rasulullah being in Mecca, Quraysh had a caravan, had merchants and businessmen and women going for business trips and transactions to other places around Arabia. So seeing that Quraysh had confiscated and looted and destroyed the livelihood of many of the Muslims, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam had given permission for the Muslims to take back what was taken from them. So Abu Sufyan, being one of the leaders of Quraysh, in one of his trips, he was leading a caravan coming back to Mecca after finishing his transactions.
Where was he coming back from?
I'm not really sure where he was coming back from, but in the outskirts of Mecca, Rasulullah is told that there is a caravan headed by Abu Sufyan coming back after completing its transactions and financial affairs. He's coming back with the goods, carrying the wealth of the heads, because every member of the heads of the tribes and the clans of Quraysh, they had participated, they had joined this caravan. They would pay a certain amount of money, or they would give them goods to be sold. They won't go alongside, they won't...
Exactly, so they would just entrust Abu Sufyan.
Yes, they would entrust Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan would take his servants and maids and he would go. Of course, there were many attempts by the Muslims to attack similar caravans previously. In many of them, they weren't able to be successful in taking the looted goods from Abu Sufyan or other merchants of the Arabs. There was one event that they were able to be successful in taking and attacking that caravan, and that was the event of Saraya al-Nakhla, where they were able to take some wealth and kill one of the members of Quraysh by the name of Amr ibn al-Hadrami. Amr ibn al-Hadrami was very well known. He was one of the sons of the main tribes of the Arabs in Quraysh. So ever since that happening, Quraysh, they wanted to seek revenge for what happened to their caravan, and for seeking revenge for the death of this Amr ibn al-Hadrami, because his father and son, his father and brothers, they wanted to take the revenge of his blood. So this momentum started building up ever since that. Now, Allah has permitted Rasulullah and the Muslims to seek revenge by attacking these caravans of Quraysh. As a result of the maltreatment and as a result of their wealth and their homes being looted and destroyed, they were able to gain back some. Because remember, the Muslims, when they migrated to Medina, the Muhajirin that migrated with Rasulullah, they didn't own anything in Medina. They had left everything in Mecca. They were forced out of Mecca. They weren't given the chance and opportunity to sell their homes or to take their belongings and their wealth. And
just like quick,
they just
one night
left their
and
land.
out.
Their land, their animals, their camels, their agriculture, everything they left. And so when they came to Medina, they were living a life of poverty. The financial situation of the Muslims that came with Rasulullah to Medina was very bad. So they were in dire need of someone or something helping them financially. Rasulullah, as I said, being told that Abu Sufyan is coming back with a caravan, and we have details of what Abu Sufyan was carrying. He was carrying 50,000 dinars, 50,000 pieces of dinars of gold. As a result of what he had sold or the profits he had made. Alongside the wealth, the money of Quraysh, he was carrying pieces of armory and weapons. So Quraysh was not sitting quiet. They were building up. They were bringing enforcement to help them to attack the Muslims. So in this situation, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam orders the Muslims to prepare themselves. Now the Muslims thinking that we are going to attack a caravan of merchants headed by Abu Sufyan. They're not going to be, well equipped. They won't have any powerful, strong. It will be an easy job. But once the news reaches Abu Sufyan, because Abu Sufyan, he was very smart. He knows the Muslims will attack any caravan. So he was sending spies all during the route to bring him news of what's happening, if any movements was happening, especially from the side of Yathrib and Medina.
Okay.
So the spies come back to Abu Sufyan and tell him, Abu Sufyan, the Muslims, and headed by Rasulullah, they are preparing to attack you and your camp and your caravan. So Abu Sufyan...
Was that the case though? Or were they just... was Rasulullah just being told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that prepare for war?
Yeah, no. Rasulullah being given permission
to attack the
caravan.
Okay.
So he was preparing yet for another event.
Attack. All right.
So Abu Sufyan, tactically, when he receives these informations, instead of taking the main road towards Mecca, he derails his caravan and takes another route.
Okay.
And sends the message to Quraysh in Mecca to prepare yourselves. Muhammad is going to attack and loot your money and your wealth. So it is then that Quraysh, with the heads of the family members of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab and all of those individuals, they start preparing and instigating and pumping up people to start defending. And what Abu Sufyan did was very clever of him, was that he sent one of his aides. He told him, injure your horse or your camel and cover yourself with blood, rip your clothes and go in that state into Mecca. So the people of Mecca become afraid.
They become more angry. Okay.
So he done that, and here the heads of the tribes, they started, saying, I will give 500 golden dinars. The other said, I will give my camels. The other said, I will give what I have of servants. And they made an army.
Okay.
And they start making their way towards where they think they will meet with Abu Sufyan. Not knowing that Abu Sufyan had changed his route to Mecca.
Okay, so wait, let me just get this picture straight. Abu Sufyan changes his route. These people think they're going to meet Abu Sufyan here.
Yeah.
But Rasulullah's army thinks Abu Sufyan is passing through here.
Ahsantum.
So this is where they clash.
Ahsantum.
Okay.
So Abu Sufyan, when he reaches a safe haven,
he
is far away from the army of Rasulullah or from where the Muslims would be able to attack.
Okay.
He sends the kuffar of Quraysh have already left Mecca. He sends a letter to the kuffar of Quraysh, to the heads of Quraysh. I've reached the safe haven. Your caravan and your wealth is safe. Now go back. There is no need for you to come.
But they're already there.
But Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl, because of their hatred and their greed towards the Muslims, they were pushing people. Abu Lahab, some historians say Abu Lahab stayed in Mecca. He didn't go because he was one of the guys or one of the personalities that wasn't really interested in engaging in a battle.
Yeah.
But then he sent people on his behalf.
Okay.
Because this was a matter of honor for Abu Lahab not to be part of this conquest or for the seeking revenge for the previous caravan. It was something big. So he sent someone to represent him. Abu Jahl, he receives the letter of Abu Sufyan and he says, no, we will continue, because what used to happen was annually in the area of Badr, caravans used to meet from different parts of Arabia, and they used to engage in buying and selling very simple items and engage in partying, dancing, singing, drinking, banqueting, and they would go back to their cities. So Abu Jahl used to say, no, we will not go back to Mecca. We will continue our way. We will go to the area of Badr. We will enjoy ourselves, because they had taken every singer, every dancer, all the drinks, all the meat, all the necessities of partying. They wanted to enjoy themselves.
Were there people that were known for this kind of stuff? For example, you see how we have a celebrity culture in this day and age. Did they have that down there?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
There was always a party who always engaged in in, parties and enjoying themselves and drinking until the morning and dancing. And
Nothing's changed, by the way.
Yeah, nothing. Of course, nothing's changed. And one of the most important points mentioned in the letter of Abu Sufyan to the Arabs of Quraysh was that if it's a must and you want to go towards Badr, at least send back the dancers and the singers.
So he didn't even say, remember me in the party, just
La.
send them back.
Yeah, because he states, I don't want them to be part of this war. I don't want them to be killed. At least send the maids and the servants and the dancers and the singers back to Mecca. Don't take them with you. And this shows the level of the Arabs at that time. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi continues his way. He meets someone who was very famously known to have knowledge of the deserts.
Okay.
And Rasulullah in the night, he places the Muslims, he camps them in a certain area, and he himself, alongside Ali ibn Abi Talib and a few other companions, they go out to be able to receive information of the movement of the kuffar of Quraysh. So they meet this personality who was knowledgeable in the paths and the ways of the desert. He gives them information. He says, according to my knowledge and according to information I have received, the camp of Abu Sufyan has reached that location where Abu Sufyan had reached, but there is another camp or another movement of Quraysh from Mecca coming towards this area. It was then that Rasulullah said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to me that you have two options. You either continue your way to attack Abu Sufyan and his caravan, or you engage in a battle.
Okay.
Because eventually, when we come to study the fine details of the army or the Muslims when they came out with Rasulullah, they weren't prepared for a battle. They weren't prepared for an army. They didn't go out in the intention of engaging in a battle.
They just went to
They
loot.
went because we were going to loot. We were going to get our money back.
Yeah.
So when he says this, Rasulullah assembles a military council, let's say, and he starts asking people for their opinion, the heads of the clans and the tribes, the head of the Ansar, the head of the Muhajirin. And one by one they start standing up, giving their opinion of what they think will happen or what the Muslims should be engaged in according to their situation. So one of the personalities that stands up is Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr stands up and he starts speaking about the might of Quraysh and the power of Quraysh and how weak and how ill-prepared the Muslims are, and that we should go back to Medina. Rasulullah, once hearing this, he wasn't pleased. He says to Abu Bakr, sit down.
Okay.
The next person standing up was Umar. Umar stood up and he repeated what Abu Bakr had said. Because these individuals, it wasn't in their personalities that they were brave individuals that were prepared for anything.
They weren't fighters.
They weren't fighters. They
Yeah.
weren't brought up to be, valiant, strong, courageous individuals. They were just merely members of Quraysh that used to go out and look after the animals, the camels and the sheep of the heads of Quraysh. The next individual that stands up was Al-Miqdad. Al-Miqdad being a very prominent individual amongst Muslims. He stands up and makes a very interesting statement. He says, Ya Rasulullah, myself and my companions, we are not going to be similar to the companions of Musa alayhi salam when they told him, اذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنا هاهنا قاعدون. Trying to give a message to those guys.
Miqdad is smart.
Yeah. But what he said, but what we say is اذهب أنت وربك ونحن معك. We will accompany you in everything, whatever you order and decide, we will obey you. And so Rasulullah thanks him, and Rasulullah tells them that Allah gives us the option of either going towards Abu Sufyan or going towards the army of Quraysh, and the Quraysh has come out, and majority of the Muslims say we obey and we listen to you. So Rasulullah decides to go and meet the heads of Quraysh in defending the Muslims, because he knows that Quraysh in its numbers and its might have come to destroy it.
So there wasn't like a prior meeting to the battle. Was there something like where they just Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa just meets with them and discusses, or is it just this army comes and it's just exchange of blows and swords?
There are references. There are references that, like a night before the battle, and also another reference that speaks about that on the day of the battle, in the morning, Rasulullah sends a letter, and makes it clear that I am not interested in engaging in a battle with you.
Okay.
And we should come to an agreement. But Quraysh being Quraysh, and they wanting to revenge the blood of their companions, they declined the offer of Rasulullah, and they made their decision to engage in the battle with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Now we get to the day of Badr.
Yeah.
How many people were on each side? That's the first question. How many people were on each side? And the second question is, who were some of the notable figures that were there on the Battle of Badr?
Okay. Some of Bani Hashim who remained in Mecca, who did not migrate with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were forced. Some sons of Abu Talib, for example, they were forced to join the camp of Quraysh in standing against Rasulullah.
Really?
Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So one of the advices or one of the orders of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the Muslims was, when you attack, don't attack my family members, because they have been forced. They didn't come out willingly.
Any notable names who were forced?
We're told Abbas, the uncle of the Holy Prophet.
Oh, so on the side of Quraysh forced,
because he was still in Mecca.
Okay.
And history says some of the one or two of the sons of Abu Talib.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So when they came to give us an estimate of the numbers of those who had been in the camp of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we are told they were 313. And later on, when you come to investigate the narrations that speak about the companions of Imam al-Mahdi salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, the narrations speak of the numbers of the companions of Imam being the same number of the companions of Rasulullah as Badr.
Yep.
So 313, of whom 80 to 90 or 97 were of the Muhajireen out of 313. 80 to 90 or 80 to 100 were of the Muhajireen, and the rest being from the Ansar, inhabitants of Medina. Because the inhabitants of Medina, when they became Muslims, or when they acknowledged Islam, and they believed in Islam on the fact that they will support Rasulullah whilst he was in Medina. But when Rasulullah left Medina, many of them stayed in Medina.
So they didn't go with him.
Yeah, only a very small number of them, because they had nothing to lose.
They had nothing to gain, actually.
They hadn't lost anything. Not like the Muhajirin, when they lost their homes and their wealth. And
there we are. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So out of the camels, they said there were 70 camels amongst the Muslims. Out of the 313, there were 70 camels that were used to transport or to carry goods. There were 1 or 2 horses between the 313. One of them owned by Zubair, and the other owned by Miqdad, being prominent individuals. Rasulullah and Amir al Mumineen, they were sharing a camel.
Okay.
As Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salatullah alayhi has a narration that says there was 1 horse and 8 suits of steel armor. Between 313 Muslims, there was 8 suits of armor.
Wow.
And 7 swords.
Wow.
So this is what we mean when we say Muslims were prepared. That between them, the Muslims only had 7 swords. So out of the 313, there were only 7 swords. So this was the Muslims. And of course, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave the standard or the banner or the flag to Amir al Mumineen sallallahu wa salamu alayhi, because that banner was always being carried by a noble person, or by a famous individual. Let's see what made up the army of the Quraysh, or the Qurayshis.
Okay. Well, I'm still shocked. I'm still in shock. Seven
swords between 313.
8 camels, 2 horses.
Yeah.
What were the rest of the companions fighting with? Their fists?
Pieces of wood, branches of trees.
Yeah, and just sounds like a standard street fight.
Yeah.
But on a big scale.
Yeah.
313 versus however many you're going to mention now.
Quraysh,
that's crazy.
The army of Quraysh, narrations narrate between 950 to 1,000 soldiers.
Wow.
So 3 times
Triple.
the number. Yeah. The amount of horse-mounted cavalry were 100.
Better than 2.
Better than 2. And a train, the narration is a train of between 400 to 700 camels.
Better than 8.
These camels, they were carrying weapons, they were carrying armors, and they were carrying their tents, their food, their drinks, because they were out in the intention of enjoying themselves.
Okay.
And they were used to transport as well. The heads of Quraysh, they each had, pledged certain amount of gold and a certain amount of camels to be used as a means of transport.
How many swords did they have?
I'm pretty sure the majority of the soldiers that accompanied Qurayshis had swords.
Seems like a fair fight.
It seems like
950 swords against 8.
But then when you come to study the belief and the faith of the Muslims, and the miracles that happened in this battle, it will show us how confident Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Amir al Mumineen were when they were facing Quraysh.
Exactly.
Because common sense wise, any smart and wise individual, he won't engage in a battle with 313 individuals that don't even have the basic necessities of warfare. And they are outnumbered. Every one Muslim was being confronted by 3 of the Qurayshis.
So it's like you going in a bare knuckle fist fight against 3 people, but those 3 people have got knives.
Knives and weapons, yeah.
And you're going bare knuckle.
So this was the case that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had promised Rasulullah of support.
Yep.
And inshallah we'll come to discuss what kind of support and aid Rasulullah received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a result of the actual battle starting, and how the Muslims looked at the army of the mushrikeen, and how the mushrikeen looked at the army of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
Say it, get me to the because I'm hearing let's say 950 swords against 8 swords. I'm hearing two horses on one side, 100 horses on the other, 700 camels on one side, 800 on the other. Give me the highlights. I want the highlights of this. But so you have a football match. The highlights are the goals, the close calls, the corners, free kicks,
the red cards,
the yellow cards, the sending offs, the fights. Give me the highlights of this battle. I want to know what
before the battle started. What usually used to happen was the most prominent or the bravest of both sides would come out, have a 1-to-1 fight to show the signs of bravery, and also to give a strength to the army.
Okay.
Before the battle started. So in this case, the army of Quraysh, they ask, "Oh Muhammad, send us the bravest of your army." So here Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam nominates 3 individuals.
Do we have the names of those 3?
We do.
Okay, I just want to know who.
We do. Rasulullah nominates his uncle Hamza.
Okay.
And he nominates Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Allah.
And he nominates his cousin Ubaidah.
See, that's one personality, right? Where, because you've seen the movie The Message, for example.
Yeah.
Right? And we see that scene where Hamza comes out, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib comes out, but then you're always wondering, who is this Ubaidah?
Ubaidah is one of the family members or close relatives from the line of Hashim or from the line of Abdul Muttalib.
Because we don't hear
Is
much
related,
about him
yeah,
in lectures.
Yeah, history doesn't go into details because they didn't have a mark, they didn't have a big role to play.
Yeah, because you think that he'd put, for example, we hear of Al-Miqdad or you hear of Ammar bin Yasir. You'd think that he'd put someone like that, like a notable name.
Yeah, again, maybe history has its facts or available for this personality, but historians have not gone and placed much interest on the personality of this individual.
Let's continue.
So Rasulullah nominates Hamza, Amir al-Mumineen Ali ibn Abi Talib and Ubaidah to go out. And from the Mushrikeen, there are 3 individuals, the 2 brothers, Shayba and Utbah, and Walid, the son of Utbah.
Yeah.
And these individuals, they were related to Hind, the wife of Abu Sufyan.
It all goes back to him. It all goes back to Abu Sufyan.
Yeah.
Everything just...
Because it was a tribal system.
Yeah.
You know, the heads of Quraysh were the most prominent, the most powerful, the most wealthiest.
So therefore their children marry each other.
Exactly.
Okay.
So here, the uncle and the cousins of Hind are the heads of the 3 individuals who are going to come on a 1-to-1 battle with the family members, the uncle, the nephew, and the relative of Rasulullah, the cousin of Rasulullah. So this explains the amount of hatred that Hind had in the battle of Uhud against Rasulullah.
Which inshallah we will come
inshallah
to, yes.
will in the next series, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So here, Hamza faces Utbah, Amir al-Mumineen faces Shayba, and Ubaidah faces Al-Walid. Hamza kills Utbah. Amir al-Mumineen with 1 strike, he finishes off Shayba. And Ubaidah struggles with Walid, where Amir al-Mumineen and other narrations that say Amir al-Mumineen and Hamza, they all come to help Ubaidah in finishing off Al-Walid. So here, the Muslims, they become victorious in this 1-to-1 battle. And as soon as this 1-to-1 battle ends, the Qurayshis and the Kuffar and the Mushrikeen are outraged. Amir al-Mumineen Hamza and Ubaidah, they carry Ubaidah because Ubaidah was struck again. He was wounded.
But did he die from that wound after? Or?
No, he didn't die.
Okay.
So, at least in that battle.
Yeah, in that battle, yeah.
Yeah, so they go back to the army and the battle starts. The battle starts. I wanted to go step a little back before the battle.
Go ahead.
Is that on the night of the battle, the Muslims were short of water. Rasulullah sends individuals to bring water they weren't successful. Who does he send? He sends Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. So Ali ibn Abi Talib, in that difficult situation, the water wells being furthest away from the camps of the Muslims, he goes, he finds that there is a well, but there isn't a container or a bucket for him to withdraw the water. In the darkness of the night, the bravery of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He's coming close to the camp of the army, of the opposing side. He goes inside the well. He goes all the way down. He fills the water skin with water. He comes back out. He is met with the tufan, with sandstorm.
Wow. Okay.
3 times he bows down. He waits for the sandstorm to calm down. He stands. He notices that the water container has drained of its water. He goes back. He fills the water. He is met with another sandstorm until 3 times, until he goes back to the tent of Rasulullah. Rasulullah says, Ya Ali, in the darkness of the night, what kept you? Amir al Mumineen salatullah alayhi says, Ya Rasulullah, this is what happened. I went in the darkness of the night. I went inside the well. I filled the water. I was confronted with 3 sandstorms. Rasulullah said, yes, I know there was sandstorms. Amir al-Mu'minin said, what were these sandstorms? Rasulullah says to Amir al-Mu'minin, Ya Ali, the first sandstorm was created by Jibreel and 1,000 of the malaika that were coming down. That was the sandstorm that was erupting as a result of them passing you. They passed you and they said salam to you. The second was Mikael and 1,000 of the angels, and the third was Israfil and another 1,000.
Yeah.
So there were angels that came down wearing white turbans with swords, that in the day of the battle they were seen by the mushrikeen as Muslims, fighting alongside the Muslims.
Just to put it into perspective, I want to put it into perspective. Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullah alayhi goes in the darkness of the night, near the enemy, just to get water. Some of us won't even enter our kitchen without a flashlight.
Without a flashlight.
In the darkness of the night, just so we don't wake mom and dad up.
I know we're going to go out of context,
yeah,
but this reminds us of how Imam Hussein alayhi salam, before the day of Ashura, he sent Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas to bring water for the children in the camp of Imam Hussein. Inshallah, that will have its own scenes.
Sayyid, we're running very short of time. I need to ask you, number one, how many people were killed during the Battle of Badr?
Yeah.
How many prisoners were there?
Yeah.
And above all, who won that battle?
Rasulullah ordered the Muslims, don't open your eyes until I tell you to open your eyes and attack.
Okay.
So this was one of the tactics, because the Muslims, they can't all see Allah's support with the angels. But what they can see is the 1,000 soldiers attacking them. So Rasulullah, as a tactic, he told the Muslims, don't open your eyes, close your eyes, and open them when I tell you to attack.
Okay.
So after those 3 individuals were killed from the Quraysh side, Quraysh attack, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, at a specific moment of time, orders the Muslims to open their eyes and attack. Do
you know, it takes a lot of iman. I'll be real with you right now. It takes 1,000 people in front of me. There's only 300 of us. You're telling me to close my eyes.
It was a test.
Exactly.
It was a test.
That takes a lot of iman.
It was a test for Rasulullah, and it was a test for his companions, to show how much they believe in this holy prophet. So with the support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the faith and the iman of the soldiers and the Muslims, they won the battle of Badr. There were, according to narrations, 14 of the Muslims who have been killed. Now if you go to the as I've been researching, the research says that there are 6 Muhajirin and 8 Ansar.
Okay.
Yeah. So only 14 of the Muslims, but the number of the mushrikeen that were killed was between 70 to 80.
70 to 80. Okay.
70 to 80. And narrations narrate that more than half of this number was killed by Amir al Mumineen alone. The rest of the Muslims, they killed less than half, like around 30, 35. And Amir al Mumineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, he killed more than half of those who were killed by the enemy on the day of Badr.
Now, how many prisoners were taken?
The same number of those who were killed, between 70 and 80.
Okay.
So they were taken as prisoners from the side of the mushrikeen. Of the Muslims, there wasn't any prisoners taken.
Now, a bit of an inconvenient way to get spoils or to loot something. But what were the spoils for this battle? What did they gain from it? I know that there was probably, swords of the dead, shields of the dead, but 100 horses against 2 horses. Were there any horses that were taken?
Yeah, there were roughly around 150 of the camels looted.
Not bad.
Taken as the spoils of the war.
Not bad at all.
And a camel in those days was something very valuable.
Of course.
It was something very important. To an extent that if they wanted to pay the ransom or the blood money of one person who had been killed, they would give 1 camel as blood money of anyone who has been killed.
Fair trade.
And some narrations narrate 10 horses were taken, and some narrations narrate 30 horses were taken.
Still, they're gaining horses.
Exactly. From 2 horses to 30, that's something very good. And also, they took some of the belongings that the Quraysh had brought with them. They called them mata. There were weapons, swords, shields, and food. Because they had brought many sheep and many goats to enjoy themselves, to have for barbecue. This is what they used to do in those days. So
who doesn't love a barbecue?
Yeah, who doesn't? Who doesn't? Especially in a good weather.
Exactly.
So these were some of the. But again, Rasulullah was not interested in the spoils as much as he was interested in the banner of Islam, in the protection of the Muslims. But unfortunately, because there were lots of muhajirin who were and Ansar in the army of Rasulullah, they were divided into 3 categories. There were these categories that were on the battlefield fighting. There were this category that was protecting Rasulullah, that remained behind the enemy front lines and protected Rasulullah. These would tend to be the elders of the Muslims. And there was this 3rd category that after the battle finished, the soldiers were tired. So this 3rd category went down to the battlefield to collect the spoils of the war.
Okay.
This caused an argument between the Muslims. The first category said, we were the ones that went down to the battlefield. So we should get the main spoils of the war. The second category said, we protected Rasulullah. If it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have been able to fight. And the third category said, we went and collected all the spoils. We brought it together, so we should have that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends a whole chapter by the name of Al-Anfal, the spoils of war and the booties of war, where Rasulullah takes control and divides it accordingly amongst the Muslims. And there was a verse of Khumus in that Surah Al-Anfal, that Allah orders Rasulullah to take Khumus, 5th of the Anfal, where Rasulullah, even in that battle, he didn't take because he wanted to give as much as possible to the Muslims to make them feel that they have been rewarded enough.
What did Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, Amir al Mumineen, get from that war? Did he get anything significant? Did he get one of the 150 camels or one of the 10 horses?
What I have understood from the narrations, that he got an armor.
He got an armor.
Or a shield.
Okay.
He got a shield from Rasulullah gave Amir al Mumineen a shield. Of course, Amir al Mumineen deserved more because he had the most. He killed more than half of the army.
Yeah.
But again, as I said, these individuals, they weren't interested in worldly material.
Yeah.
They were there to support the cause of Allah, the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when one studies the life of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, he would come and understand how these guys lived their lives.
Yeah.
They gave everything. Gold and silver was nothing to them. As long as...
Because it was all servants to them.
Exactly. As long as...
Say, they wanted a better reaction for that line from you.
Inshallah, in the next episode, we'll inshallah give you better lines.
Inshallah.
But again, what Ahlul Bayt, Amir al Mumineen sallallahu alayhi, specifically was interested in was to preserve the honor and dignity of the Muslims. يعني there are many narrations that say normal people, they protect their wealth, and ulama are protected by the wealth. So Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam, as you said, they are servants. These things, well, these guys are servants to Ahlul Bayt. They are not means of you to live for your wealth, your house, your car, your money. These things, they should be serving you, and these things should be helping you to live a better life amongst your family and your friends.
Ahsan Sayyidina. My dear brothers and sisters, Imam Amir al Mumineen alayhi salam continues to grow after this, and he continues to prosper, and he gets married to the best of women to have ever come on the face of this earth, the best ever creation, the best of nisa, and the best of guides to mankind. But inshallah we will discuss that in the next episode with our dear guest Sayyid Ali and Nawab. But thank you so much for joining us. That was the Battle of Badr, with interesting facts and very, very beautiful ways that you can imagine how the Battle of Badr happened. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.